The email notification chimed at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: Organizational restructuring. My stomach dropped before I even clicked it. Victor Brennan, my director, wanted to see me immediately. Not in an hour. Not after lunch. I walked down the hallway with my coffee still warm in my hand. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The same sound I'd heard every morning for 4 years. 4 years of building systems, training teams, staying late when projects fell behind. 4 years of hearing Victor say, "I don't know what we'd do without you." His office door was open. He sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, expression neutral. Not angry. Not sad. Just blank. "Close the door," he said quietly. I did. My pulse quickened. "I'll get straight to it," Victor began, leaning back in his chair. "Your role no longer exists. We're restructuring the department, and your position has been eliminated effective immediately." The words hit like a punch I saw coming but couldn't dodge. My chest tightened. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Company-wide email. New hire announcement. Ryan Brennan. Operations Coordinator. Start date today. Ryan Brennan. Victor's nephew. Doing my exact job. I stared at Victor, then at my phone, then back at Victor. His expression hadn't changed. Controlled. Like he'd rehearsed this moment in the mirror. "Your role no longer exists," I repeated slowly, testing the words. "But you just hired someone." Victor straightened a stack of papers on his desk, not meeting my eyes. "That's a different scope. Different responsibilities. Operations Coordinator," I said, reading directly from the email. "That's my title." "Was your title," he corrected. His voice carried no emotion, no apology, nothing. "The new structure requires a fresh approach. We're moving in a different direction." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why he didn't have the decency to tell me before announcing it company-wide. I wanted to demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was instinct. Instead, I asked one quiet question. "So who's handling my current responsibilities?" Victor smiled. It was quick, automatic, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "That's already been handled." Handled. Like I was a problem. Like 4 years of work, of loyalty, of late nights fixing his mistakes, could be erased with one word. I nodded slowly, keeping my face neutral. "Understood. HR will reach out about your exit process," Victor added, already turning his attention to his computer screen. Dismissed. I stood, walked to the door, and paused with my hand on the handle. I didn't look back. I didn't argue. Not yet. Because something inside me already knew. This wasn't sudden. This was planned. The walk back to my desk felt longer than usual. Colleagues glanced up as I passed, some curious, some already knowing. Word traveled fast in small offices. By lunch, everyone would know I'd been let go. I sat down and opened my email. The announcement sat at the top of my inbox, bold and official. Ryan Brennan's smiling headshot stared back at me. Young, confident, completely unqualified. I clicked through to the employee directory. His profile was already active. Title: Operations Coordinator. Department: Operations. Reporting to Victor Brennan. My hands trembled as I scrolled. His responsibilities were listed in bullet points. Every single one was something I'd been doing for years. Vendor management, process documentation, workflow optimization, budget tracking. Not a different scope. Not a fresh approach. My job. Repackaged and handed to family. My phone buzzed. A text from Lori in accounting. "Are you okay?" Just saw the email. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because if I started typing, I'd say something I couldn't take back. Instead, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the folder I'd been maintaining for months. Not because I expected this, but because I believed in documentation. In records. In proof. Hiring approvals. Budget reallocations. Emails with Victor's signature. Timestamps from weeks ago. Everything dated before my termination. Everything he would soon claim didn't exist. I closed the folder and slipped it into my bag. Then I smiled, small and quiet, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. He thought I'd surrendered. He had no idea what I'd been preparing for. 2 hours later, I found Victor in the break room pouring coffee. "Lone. Can we talk?" asked, keeping my voice steady. He glanced at me, then at the door, as if calculating whether anyone might overhear. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "I need clarity. You said my role was eliminated, but Ryan's doing the exact same work. How does that align with company policy?" Victor stirred his coffee slowly, deliberately. "It doesn't align because it's not the same. Ryan's role focuses on optimization. Yours was operational maintenance. Different functions. Then why does his job description list vendor management, process documentation, and budget tracking? Those were my primary responsibilities." His jaw tightened, just slightly. "You're reading too much into it." "Am I?" Pressed. "Because I reviewed the hiring paperwork. It was submitted 3 weeks ago. Before you told me my position was being eliminated." Victor's hand froze mid-stir. Then he recovered, shaking his head with a dismissive laugh. "There was no hiring paperwork 3 weeks ago. Ryan's hire was expedited last week due to urgent operational needs. So there's no documentation showing otherwise?" "None," he said firmly. "And frankly, I don't appreciate the implication." I nodded slowly, watching his face. He believed himself. Believed his own lie so thoroughly that he'd convinced himself it was truth. "Understood," I said quietly. "I just wanted to clarify before I finalize my transition documents." Victor relaxed slightly. "Good. Let's keep this professional." I turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Where are the hiring files stored now? I want to make sure I route everything correctly." "HR has them," he said quickly. Too quickly. Smiled. "Perfect. Thanks for your time." As I walked away, I remembered exactly where those files lived. Because I was the one who managed them. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the past 4 years like a movie I'd watched too many times. I remembered my first day. How Victor welcomed me personally, shook my hand, told me he needed someone sharp, someone reliable, someone who could build systems from the ground up. I remembered the late nights. The projects no one else wanted. The process overhauls that saved the company thousands. The training programs I designed when staff turnover threatened to collapse entire workflows. I remembered Victor's praise. "You're the backbone of this department," he'd said during my last review. "I honestly don't know what we'd do without you." I remembered recommending the new vendor management software. How Victor initially resisted, then took credit when it exceeded expectations. How he presented my cost-saving analysis to leadership as his own strategic initiative. I remembered every spreadsheet, every procedure manual, every late email I sent while he was home with his family. And I realized something that made my stomach turn. I hadn't just done my job well. I'd handed him the tools to replace me. The systems, the documentation, the processes. Everything he needed to justify my elimination. Everything except one thing. The evidence that he'd planned this all along. I sat up in bed and opened my laptop. My personal backup drive glowed to life. Folders organized by year, by project, by category. I clicked into hiring and staffing. Then 2024. Then Q3 approvals. There it was. Ryan Brennan's hiring packet. Dated September 12th. Signed by Victor. 3 weeks before he eliminated my position. I exhaled slowly. He'd forgotten I managed the approval workflow. Forgotten I was the one who processed every hire, every restructure, every budget reallocation. He thought I'd surrendered. But I'd been building something he couldn't see. A foundation of truth he couldn't erase. The severance meeting happened exactly 48 hours later. Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Conference Room B. Victor sat across from me with Kelly from HR. She slid a packet across the table, her expression professionally sympathetic. We've prepared your severance package. Standard terms. 2 weeks pay. Benefits continuation through the end of the month. I flipped through the pages slowly, reading every line. Non-disparagement clause. Confidentiality agreement. Release of claims. Victor avoided eye contact, studying something on his phone as if this was routine paperwork. Nothing personal. Any questions? Kelly asked gently. I looked at Victor. He glanced up briefly, then away. No questions, I said. I picked up the pen, signed my name clearly on every required line, and slid the packet back across the table. Kelly blinked, surprised. That's it. You don't want time to review or consult. I'm good, I interrupted, standing. Thank you for your time. Victor finally looked at me fully. Relief flooded his features. He thought I'd given up, thought I'd taken the easy way out. I extended my hand across the table. He hesitated, then shook it. His grip was firm, confident, the handshake of a man who just dodged a bullet. Good luck with everything, I said, my voice steady. You too, he replied. I walked out of the conference room, down the hallway, past the cubicles where colleagues whispered and watched. I didn't stop at my desk, didn't say goodbye, just headed straight for the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the polished steel. I was smiling, not out of happiness, out of clarity. They thought I'd surrendered. They had no idea what I'd just set in motion. That weekend, I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened every file I'd maintained over the past 4 years. Not just the hiring documents, everything. My role had included more than operations. I'd managed the approval chain for every departmental decision. Budget reallocations, vendor contracts, staff restructures, policy updates. Victor trusted me because I was thorough, organized, meticulous. What he forgot was that thorough meant documented. Organized meant dated. Meticulous meant backed up. I pulled up my transition checklist, the one I'd been maintaining since my first week. It outlined every responsibility, every approval pathway, every system I'd built. At the bottom, in a section labeled Administrative Records Management, was a note I'd written 2 years ago. All hiring approvals must be finalized and archived within 30 days of submission per company policy. Coordinator maintains master file until HR confirms receipt. I clicked into the master file. It was still active, still under my access credentials. Because technically, I was still finalizing my transition documents. My official exit date wasn't until next Friday. Everything was still clean, still accurate, still mine to complete. I opened Ryan Brennan's hiring approval, dated September 12th. Submitted by Victor Brennan. Approved by Finance on September 15th. Budget code 47 OPS, my department's operational budget. Position title: Operations Coordinator. Job description: identical to mine, word for word. Then I clicked on Victor's email from September 18th. Subject: Departmental Restructure Proposal. In it, he outlined the plan to eliminate redundant positions and bring in fresh talent. He mentioned cost savings, efficiency improvements, strategic realignment. He didn't mention nepotism. Didn't mention his nephew. Didn't mention me by name. But the timeline was crystal clear. Hire Ryan first. Eliminate my role second. Make it look like restructuring, not replacement. I saved everything to 3 separate drives. Then I closed my laptop and exhaled slowly. The documents existed. Victor's lies existed. The truth existed. And soon everyone would see it. I didn't reach out to anyone from the company. Didn't text. Didn't call. I let the silence stretch. But Lori texted me on Monday. You okay? Things are falling apart here. What do you mean? I replied. Ryan. He's lost. Missing deadlines. Doesn't understand the vendor system. Keeps asking questions about processes you built. Victor's getting frustrated. I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. Another part just felt tired. Has Victor said anything? Yes. He keeps blaming legacy issues, Lori wrote. Says the old systems were inefficient and that's why Ryan's struggling. Legacy issues. Translation: my fault. I stared at my phone, jaw tight. I'd built those systems. Documented them. Trained people on them. They weren't inefficient. They were functional. Effective. Proven. But Victor needed a narrative. Needed someone to blame. And I wasn't there to defend myself. Thanks for the update, I typed back. Are you going to do anything? Lori asked. Thought about it. Thought about the documents sitting on my backup drive. Thought about the timeline that proved everything. Not yet, I replied. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't action. It's patience. Waiting for someone to dig their own grave before you hand them the shovel. 2 days later, Lori texted again. Victor told leadership your department was inefficient before restructuring. Says Ryan's doing better work. I set my phone down carefully. Slowly. Because if I moved too quickly, I'd do something I'd regret. Victor had just made his first critical mistake. He'd put his lies on record. In front of leadership. Officially. And according to company policy, any claims of departmental inefficiency triggered an automatic compliance review. I opened my laptop and checked the company portal. Sure enough, there was a notification in the compliance queue. Review requested. Operations Department Restructure and Performance Assessment. Victor didn't realize what he'd just started. But I did. I didn't have to wait long. On Thursday, exactly 1 week after my official exit date, I received an email from Kelly in HR. Hi, we're conducting a routine review of recent departmental changes. As part of the transition process, we'd like to request any documentation you maintained related to hiring, budget approvals, and operational procedures. Please send at your earliest convenience. Routine review. Translation. Someone asked questions Victor couldn't answer. I drafted a response carefully, professionally. Happy to assist. I maintained comprehensive records per company policy. I'll compile everything and send it over by end of day. Then I open the files. Every hiring approval. Every budget reallocation. Every email where Victor praised my work, then later blamed my systems. I organized them chronologically. Added a table of contents. Included timestamps, signature records, approval chains. Everything clean, factual, undeniable. At 4:47 p.m. I hit send. Then I waited. The response came faster than I expected. An email from Victor at 11:34 p.m. that same night. Hey, quick question. Do you remember if we submitted any hiring paperwork for Ryan before your departure? Chur is asking and I can't find records. Anything you can recall would be helpful. I read it 3 times. He was panicking. Slowly. Carefully. But panicking. He'd told HR there was no early hiring paperwork. Told them Ryan's position was created after my role was eliminated. Told them everything was above board. Now HR had my documentation. And his story didn't match. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Finally I wrote, I provided everything I maintained to HR per their request. They should have what they need. Good luck with the review. Polite. Professional. Unhelpful. I hit send and closed my laptop. Then I smiled in the dark. He'd forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I was just telling the truth. While Victor's world quietly unraveled, mine moved forward. I'd been applying to positions since the day I was let go. Not frantically. Strategically. Companies that valued documentation, transparency, operational excellence. 3 days after sending the files to HR, I received an offer. A mid-sized tech firm 40 minutes away. Better pay, better title, better leadership. Accepted immediately. The relief was physical. My shoulders relaxed. My jaw unclenched. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. I wasn't tied to Victor anymore. Wasn't dependent on his company, his approval, his version of events. I was finally untouchable. Monday morning I sent a brief email to Kelly in HR. Just wanted to let you know I've accepted a position elsewhere. Happy to assist with any remaining transition needs, but I'm officially moving forward. Kelly responded within an hour. Congratulations. We appreciate your professionalism throughout this process. If anything comes up during the review, can we still reach you at this email? Of course, I replied. That afternoon my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Hi, this is Bryce from Compliance. We're finalizing the review of the Operations Department restructure. Do you have a few minutes to clarify some timeline questions? My pulse quickened. Sure. Great. So, just to confirm, you maintain the hiring approval records for the department, correct? Correct. And Ryan Brennan's hiring approval was submitted on September 12th, signed by Victor Brennan on the same day, and approved by Finance on September 15th? That's what the records show, I said carefully. And your termination was communicated to you on October 3rd? Correct. There was a pause. Then Bryce said quietly, "Thank you. That's all I needed." The call ended. I sat staring at my phone. They knew. They'd done the math. Hired first, terminated second. The timeline didn't lie. And neither did I. The audit officially began the following week. I wasn't part of it anymore, but Lori kept me updated. HR requested everything, she texted. Budget reports, emails, hiring justifications. Victor's acting confident, but you can tell he's stressed. How's Ryan doing? Asked. Still struggling. Missed another client deadline yesterday. Leadership noticed. I didn't respond. I didn't need to gloat. The truth was doing the work for me. 2 days later, another text from Lori. Victor just sent a department-wide email saying he's streamlining communication and that all questions should go through him directly. No more CCing leadership. I frowned. That wasn't streamlining. That was control. He was trying to manage the narrative, filter what leadership saw. That afternoon I received an email from Victor. My heart sank before I even opened it. Hey, I know you've moved on, but I wanted to reach out personally. HR is asking about some hiring timelines, and I think there might be some confusion in the records you provided. Do you remember anything that might help clarify? Would really appreciate your insight here. I read it twice. He wasn't asking. He was fishing. Trying to see what I knew, what I'd said, how much damage I'd caused. I didn't respond immediately. I let the email sit. Let him wonder. 3 hours later he sent another. Just following up. Really would help to get on the same page before the review wraps up. Let me know when you have a chance to chat. I opened a reply window and typed carefully. Victor, I provided all records I maintain to HR as requested. Everything is documented and dated per company policy. I don't have anything to add beyond what's already been submitted. Best of luck with the review. Professional. Factual. Final. I hit send and turned off my email notifications. He'd asked me to help him. To cover for him. To collaborate on a lie. And I'd said no. Not angrily. Not vengefully. Just honestly. Sometimes the most powerful word is the one you don't say. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the documents. Not because I regretted sending them, but because I realized how close Victor had come to getting away with it. If I hadn't kept records, if I hadn't maintained approvals, if I'd trusted the system to be fair without proof. I opened my backup drive one more time. Clicked through the files. Ryan Brennan's hiring approval. September 12th. Submitted by Victor. Budget code 47 OPS. Approved by Finance 3 days later. Victor's email to leadership. September 18th. Proposing departmental restructure. Eliminating redundant roles, improving efficiency. My termination meeting. October 3rd. Role eliminated. Position no longer exists. Ryan's start date. October 3rd, same day. Same title. Same responsibilities. The timeline didn't just suggest impropriety. Proved it. But there was more. I scrolled deeper into the September emails. Found one I'd almost forgotten. From Victor to Finance. September 20th. Subject: Budget reallocation request. Requesting approval to reallocate $67,000 from operational salaries to new hire budget. Will eliminate one coordinator position to offset costs. New hire will focus on optimization and process improvement. I stared at the screen. He'd planned my termination 2 weeks before he told me. Had calculated my salary, requested the reallocation, built the justification. And he'd described the new hire as focusing on optimization. Not replacement. Not maintaining operations. Optimization. He'd lied to finance. Lied to HR. Lied to me. But he'd left a paper trail. 'Cause he thought no one was watching. I forwarded the email to my personal archive. Added it to the folder labeled Victor Timeline. Then I closed my laptop and exhaled slowly. One email. That's all it would take. One email to compliance showing the reallocation request dated before my termination. One email proving everything. I hadn't sent it yet. Hadn't needed to. Char already had enough. But if they asked, I'd be ready. Lori's texts became more frequent. More urgent. Ryan missed 3 meetings this week. Leadership is asking questions. Victor blamed outdated processes again. Said your systems weren't scalable. They're comparing Ryan's output to your last quarter. It's not even close. I didn't respond to most of them. What could I say? I wasn't responsible for Ryan's performance. Wasn't responsible for Victor's lies. But one text caught my attention. Victor's rewriting the transition notes. Says the department was underperforming before Ryan arrived. I sat up straight. Rewriting notes. That wasn't management. That was evidence tampering. What do you mean rewriting? I asked. He sent an email to leadership yesterday summarizing the restructure. Made it sound like the department was failing and Ryan fixed it. Completely different from what actually happened. I felt my jaw tighten. I documented everything. Performance metrics, client feedback, project completion rates. My department wasn't failing. It was exceeding targets. And now Victor was erasing that. Replacing reality with fiction. Creating a narrative where I was the problem and Ryan was the solution. Has HR seen it? Type. Don't know, Lori replied. I opened my email and scrolled to Kelly's last message. She'd said I could reach out if anything came up. I drafted a message carefully. Hi Kelly, I heard leadership received updated transition summaries. If you need historical performance data for comparison, I maintained quarterly metrics through my last day. Happy to provide if helpful for the review. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. 2 hours later, Kelly responded. That would actually be very helpful. Can you send what you have? I attached everything. Metrics showing 94% on-time project delivery. Client satisfaction scores averaging 4.7 out of 5. Cost savings totaling $140,000 over 2 years. I didn't add commentary. Didn't point out the discrepancies. Just sent the data. The numbers would speak for themselves. The response came from compliance, not HR. We've reviewed the performance data you provided. There appears to be a significant discrepancy between the metrics you maintained and recent leadership communications. Can you clarify when and how these records were compiled? I replied immediately. All metrics were compiled in real time using our project management system. Reports were generated monthly and submitted to Victor for leadership review. I can provide submission receipts if needed. 30 minutes later. Yes, please. I sent everything. Email receipts showing I'd sent monthly reports to Victor. His responses thanking me for thorough documentation. Leadership emails praising departmental efficiency. Every piece of evidence showing that my department wasn't failing. It was succeeding. And Victor knew it. That evening I received a different kind of email. From Victor directly. We need to talk. This review has gotten out of hand and I think there's been a miscommunication about what actually happened. Can we get on a call tomorrow? I think we can clear this up quickly. I read it 3 times. He wanted to talk. Wanted to clear things up. Wanted me to help him rewrite history. But I wasn't interested in his version anymore. I drafted a response, professional and brief. Victor, I've provided factual documentation to compliance as requested. Everything is accurate and complete. I don't have anything to add beyond what's already been submitted. I've moved forward with my career and recommend you focus on yours. I hit send and blocked his number. He'd spent weeks blaming me, erasing me, lying about me. Now he wanted my help. But help requires trust. And trust requires honesty. He'd run out of both. 3 days later, HR sent an official request. As part of the compliance review, we need your written statement regarding the department restructure and your termination. Please provide a factual summary of events, including dates, communications, and any relevant documentation. This was it. The moment to speak. Not angrily. Not emotionally. Just honestly. I spent 2 hours writing. Kept it clinical, factual, chronological. On October 3rd, I was informed my position was eliminated due to restructuring. Later that day, a company-wide email announced Ryan Brennan's hire for an identical role. When I inquired about the overlap, I was told the roles were different. Records show Ryan's hiring approval was submitted September 12th, 3 weeks before my termination. I included dates for every meeting, every email, every conversation. Attached supporting documents. Didn't speculate. Didn't accuse. Just presented facts. At the end, I added 1 paragraph. I bring this forward not to harm anyone, but because accuracy matters. If the restructure was legitimate, the timeline should reflect that. If it wasn't, policy should be followed. I trust leadership to determine appropriate next steps. I read it 5 times. Removed anything that sounded bitter. Anything that sounded vengeful. Left only truth. Then I sent it. 2 hours later, Kelly responded. Thank you for your thorough and professional response. This will be included in the review file. We'll reach out if we need any clarification. That night, Lori texted. HR just scheduled a closed-door meeting with leadership. Victor wasn't invited. My stomach flipped. This was real. This was happening. When? Asked. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anxiety. From anticipation. The truth was finally being heard. Not my version. Not Victor's version. Just the truth. And sometimes that's all justice needs. The panic email arrived at 1:47 a.m. I woke to my phone buzzing. Half asleep, I checked the notification. From Victor Brennan, subject. I need to apologize. My heart pounded as I opened it. I know it's late. I can't sleep. I need to say this. I'm sorry for how things unfolded. I handled the transition poorly, and I should have been more transparent with you. HR is asking questions I don't have good answers for, and I'm realizing I made mistakes. Can you help me clarify a few things? Specifically about the timeline and what you told compliance. I'm not trying to cause problems, just trying to understand what's happening. Please call me when you can. I read it twice. 3 times. Searching for sincerity. For accountability. All I found was fear. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he got caught. I didn't respond. Not at 1:47 a.m. Not at 7 a.m. when I woke up. Not at 9 a.m. when I knew his closed-door meeting was happening. Instead, I forwarded his email. To Kelly in HR. To Bryce in compliance. Exactly as company policy required. I added 1 line. Received this last night. Forwarding per protocol. I've provided all documentation requested and have nothing further to add. Then I went to work. My new job. My new team. My new life. At 2:34 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from Bryce. Hi, we received your forward. Just wanted to confirm you haven't had any direct communication with Victor beyond what you've shared. Please call back when you can. Called back immediately. I haven't spoken to him since I left. That email was the first contact. Understood. Thank you for forwarding it. That's actually very helpful for the review. Can I ask why? I said carefully. Bryce paused. Let's just say it corroborates some concerns we already had. The call ended. I sat in my car in the parking lot, hands trembling. Victor had reached out to me. In writing. At 1:47 a.m. asking me to clarify things. To help him. And I'd forwarded it to the people investigating him. Not out of revenge. Out of policy. Out of honesty. Sometimes the most damaging thing you can do to a liar is simply tell the truth. Silence followed. Not the comfortable kind. The heavy kind. The kind where you know something's happening but you can't see it yet. I didn't hear from HR. Didn't hear from compliance. Didn't hear from Victor. Lori stopped texting updates. When I asked if everything was okay, she replied, "Things are tense. Can't really talk about it. I'll explain later." I let it go. Whatever was happening, I wasn't part of it anymore. I told my truth. Provided my evidence. Done my part. The rest was out of my hands. But on Friday, exactly 1 week after I forwarded Victor's email, I received a calendar invite. From Executive Leadership Subject. Confidential meeting request time. Monday, 10 a.m. My pulse quickened. I clicked into the details. We'd like to discuss findings from the recent compliance review. Your participation is voluntary but would be appreciated. Please confirm attendance. I stared at the screen. They wanted me back. In the building. In front of leadership. Part of me wanted to decline. To say I'd moved on, that I didn't need closure, that they could handle it without me. But another part knew the truth. This wasn't about closure. This was about accountability. I hit accept. Monday morning felt surreal. I stood outside the building I'd walked into 1,000 times, now as a visitor instead of an employee. Security buzzed me in. Kelly met me in the lobby, professional but warm. "Thank you for coming. We know this isn't easy." She led me to the executive conference room. Not the small one where I'd been terminated. The big one. The one reserved for board meetings and serious decisions. 3 people sat at the table. Bryce from compliance. Caroline the CFO. And Preston the CEO. I'd never met Preston directly. He was always traveling, always in high-level meetings, always inaccessible. Now he was looking directly at me. "Please sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. I sat, hands folded, trying to project calm I didn't feel. Preston spoke first. "We've completed the review of the operations department restructure. What we found was concerning. Very concerning." He slid a document across the table. It was a timeline. My timeline. The one I'd provided. With dates highlighted in yellow. "According to these records," Preston continued, "Ryan Brennan's hiring approval was submitted and approved 3 weeks before your termination. When we asked Victor about this, he claimed the hire was expedited after your role was eliminated." He paused. "The records don't support that claim." Caroline leaned forward. "We also found budget reallocation requests dated before your termination. Requests that specifically mentioned eliminating your position to fund the new hire." Bryce added, "And when we compared your performance metrics to Victor's recent statements, the discrepancies were significant. He claimed your department was underperforming. The data shows the opposite." I sat very still, processing. They'd found everything. Seen everything. Believed everything. Preston looked at me directly. "We need to ask. Why didn't you bring this up during your termination meeting?" Took a breath. "Because I didn't have proof yet. And because I didn't want to make accusations I couldn't support." "But you kept records," Caroline said. "I always kept records," I replied. "It was part of my job. I just didn't realize I'd need them for this." Preston nodded slowly. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading. "Do you believe Victor eliminated your position to create room for his nephew?" I met his eyes. "I believe the timeline speaks for itself." Silence filled the room. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. Preston broke the silence first. We've made a decision. Ryan Brennan will be reassigned to a different department, effective immediately. His role in operations is being eliminated. My chest tightened. What about Victor? Caroline answered. That's still under discussion. But his actions violated multiple company policies. Nepotism, misrepresentation to leadership, improper termination procedures. We wanted you to know, Preston added, that none of this was your fault. You were wronged. And we take that seriously. I nodded slowly, unsure what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt tired. There's one more thing, Preston said, sliding another document across the table. We're prepared to offer you reinstatement. Same role, same pay with back pay for the time you were gone. Plus a formal apology. The offer sat between us like a test. Like a choice I hadn't prepared for. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But I've already accepted another position. Preston didn't look surprised. We figured. But the offer stands if you change your mind. As I stood to leave, Caroline spoke quietly. What you did took courage. Most people would have stayed silent. I didn't do anything special, I replied. I just told the truth. That's exactly what made it special, she said. I walked out of the conference room, through the lobby, past the security desk. As the glass doors closed behind me, I felt something shift. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just peace. Ryan was gone. Victor stood alone. And I'd moved forward. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just quiet accountability. 2 days later my phone rang. Victor's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. Hello. My voice was steady. Mia. His voice cracked on my name. I need to talk to you. Silence stretched between us. Heavy. Uncomfortable. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, he continued. But I'm asking. Please. Can you help me clear this up? They're saying I violated policy, that I lied, that I planned this. But it wasn't like that. It was just bad timing, poor communication. If you could just tell them. Tell them what? I interrupted quietly. That it was a misunderstanding. That the timeline doesn't mean what they think it means. Closed my eyes. Took a breath. Victor, the timeline is what it is. I didn't create it. I just documented it. But you forwarded everything to compliance, he said, voice rising. You went out of your way to tell the truth, I finished. That's all I did. Answer questions honestly and provide records I maintained as part of my job. But you knew what it would do to me. No, I said firmly. I knew what the truth would do. What you did to yourself. Silence again. Then Victor spoke, quieter now. I'm going to lose my job. They're investigating me. My career is over. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy. But I couldn't. Not when I remembered standing in his office, being told my role no longer existed while his nephew took my job. I lost mine too, I said softly. The difference is, I didn't do anything wrong. So you're just going to let them destroy me? I'm not doing anything, I replied. I moved on. You should too. I can't move on from this. Not without your help. I realized something in that moment. Victor didn't want help. He wanted rescue. Wanted me to lie for him, cover for him, protect him from consequences he'd earned. And I couldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. I'm sorry, I said. But I can't help you. Can't or won't. Both. The line went quiet. Then Victor said, barely audible. I thought you were better than this. I am, I replied. That's why I'm saying no. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. From finality. He'd asked for help. For mercy. For alliance against the truth. And I'd given him the only honest answer I had. Well. The following week, Lori called instead of texting. It's over, she said when I answered. Victor's gone. My stomach dropped. What happened? They terminated him this morning. policy violations, misrepresentation, improper hiring practices. It was official. Security walked him out. I sat down slowly. How's the department? Chaos, Lori admitted. But honest chaos. Leadership brought in an interim manager. Someone from outside. They're restructuring for real this time. And Ryan. Transferred to data entry. He's not happy about it, but he didn't have a choice. Process this. Victor was gone. Ryan was demoted. The department I'd built was being rebuilt without me. How do you feel? Lori asked gently. Thought about it. Really thought. Relieved. And tired. And ready to move on. You did the right thing, she said. Everyone knows that now. I just told the truth. Exactly. After we hung up, I sat in silence. No celebration. No victory lap. Just quiet acknowledgement. Victor had gambled everything on a lie. And when the truth came forward, he lost. Not because I destroyed him. Because he destroyed himself. I just refused to help him cover it up. The official decision came in a letter 2 weeks later. From Executive Leadership Subject. Resolution and Apology. Dear Mia, following our investigation into the Operations Department restructure, we have concluded that your termination was improper and violated company policy. Victor Brennan's actions constituted nepotism and misrepresentation to leadership. Effective immediately, Victor Brennan has been terminated for cause. Ryan Brennan has been reassigned to a role appropriate to his experience level. We deeply regret the way you were treated and extend our formal apology. Your contributions to this company were significant, and your professionalism throughout this process has been exemplary. We remain hopeful you might consider returning in the future. Until then, we wish you success in your new role. Sincerely, Preston Aldridge, CO. I read it 3 times. An apology. An acknowledgement. Vindication in writing. I saved it to my personal files. Not because I needed validation, but because sometimes documentation matters. Even the good kind. That afternoon I received another email. From Preston directly. Mia, I know you've moved on, but I wanted to reach out personally. What happened to you was unacceptable. If you're ever interested in consulting or advisory work, we'd welcome the conversation. No pressure. Just wanted you to know the door is open. Smiled. Not because I wanted to go back, but because they finally saw what I'd known all along. I was never the problem. I was the solution they eliminated. Preston's email sat in my inbox for 3 days before I responded. I thought about it constantly. The offer. The door left open. The possibility of returning, even in a consulting capacity. Part of me was tempted. Returning on my terms, with leverage, with respect. Showing everyone who doubted me that I'd been right all along. But another part knew the truth. Going back wouldn't change what happened. Wouldn't erase the humiliation, the lies, the weeks of uncertainty. And I'd already moved forward. Finally, I drafted a response. Preston. Thank you for reaching out and for the apology. I appreciate the acknowledgement and the offer to consult. After careful consideration, I've decided to respectfully decline. I found a role that aligns with my values and career goals, and I'm excited about the direction I'm heading. I hold no animosity toward the company or the people who supported me during my time there. But I think the healthiest choice for me is to continue moving forward rather than looking back. I wish you and the team all the best. Sincerely, Mia. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. 20 minutes later, Preston replied. Understood and respected. You're going to do incredible things. Thank you for handling everything with such grace. I closed my laptop and exhaled slowly. It was done. Truly done. No consulting. No advisory role. No connection to the place that had tried to erase me. Just closure. Clean, complete closure. Weeks passed. Then months. Life settled into a rhythm I hadn't experienced in years. Stable. My new job challenged me in good ways. Respected my input. Valued my documentation. Trusted my judgment. And slowly, the weight I'd been carrying lifted. I stopped checking my old company's LinkedIn. Stopped wondering what Victor was doing. Stopped replaying the courtroom of my own mind where I defended myself again and again. Because I didn't need to anymore. The truth had defended me. The evidence had spoken. Justice had arrived quietly, without drama, exactly as it should. One afternoon, Lori texted, "You'll never guess what happened." What? Victor applied to a competitor. They called us for a reference. HR flagged him as ineligible for rehire. He didn't get the job. I stared at my phone. Part of me felt something close to pity. His career wasn't just damaged. It was marked. Permanently. How do you feel about that? Lori asked. I thought carefully before responding. I feel like actions have consequences. And that's not my responsibility. Fair, she replied. That night I reflected on everything. The termination. Evidence. The investigation. The resolution. Good one. Not in the dramatic, explosive way viral stories promise. But in the quiet, permanent way that actually matters. My name was cleared. My work was validated. My character remained intact. And Victor learned something I'd known all along. You can lie to people. But you can't lie to documentation. Truth doesn't need volume. Just needs time. 6 months after my termination, I received an unexpected message. It wasn't from anyone at my old company. It was from a former colleague named Jordan who'd left years earlier. Hey Mia, I heard what happened with Victor. I'm sorry you went through that. But I wanted you to know something. When I worked there, he did the same thing to someone else. Forced them out, blamed performance issues, brought in someone connected to leadership. I never said anything because I didn't have proof. But you had proof. And you used it. Thank you for that. I read the message 3 times. Victor's behavior wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. And I'd been the one who finally stopped it. Not through aggression. Not through revenge. Just through documentation and honesty. I responded simply. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry that happened to you too. Jordan replied. We tell ourselves staying quiet is safer. But sometimes the safest thing is speaking up. You taught me that. I sat with those words for a long time. I hadn't set out to teach anyone anything. I just tried to protect myself. But in protecting myself, I'd protected others. Future employees. Future targets. Future people who might have been erased the way I almost was. That night, I opened my journal and wrote one line. Winning doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like peace. And for the first time in months, I slept without waking up at 3 a.m. replaying conversations, rewriting defenses, rehearsing arguments. The chapter was closed. Not with fanfare. With quiet, permanent closure. A year later I received one final email. From Victor Brennan, subject. No subject. My hand hovered over the delete button. I'd blocked his number. Filtered his emails. Moved on completely. But curiosity won. Opened it. Mia. I don't expect you to respond. I don't even know if you'll read this. But I needed to say it anyway. You were right. About everything. Timeline. The lies. The way I treated you. I've spent this year trying to rebuild my career and my reputation. It's been humbling, painful, and deserved. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from what I did. But I'm trying to learn from it. Sorry. For real this time. Not because I got caught. But because I finally understand what I took from you. I don't need forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know. Victor. I read it once. Then I closed the email. My cursor hovered over the reply button. For a moment I considered responding. Acknowledging his apology. Offering some small grace. But then I realized something. I didn't owe him that. Didn't owe him closure or validation or absolution. He'd taken my job, my security, my peace of mind. And when the truth came out, he'd asked me to lie for him. This apology, however sincere, didn't change that. So I moved the email to a folder labeled Archive. Not deleted. Not prominently displayed. Just filed away. Then I stood, walked to my window, and looked out at the city I'd rebuilt my life in. The lesson wasn't about revenge. Wasn't about destroying someone who wronged me. It was simpler than that. When someone tries to erase you, the most powerful response is staying visible. Not to ruin them, but to rise past them. My career didn't end in Victor's office. Started there. And I learned something I'd carry forever. Document your work. Guard your truth. Stand firm when someone powerful expects you to break. Because sometimes the only difference between losing everything and reclaiming everything is one simple choice. The choice to tell the truth, even when silence seems safer. The choice to forward the documents he claimed didn't exist. The choice to say no when he asked for help covering his lies. I never needed his permission to win. I just needed my own courage to speak. And in the end that was enough.